I'm here right now with Cliff Frettwell from the Compound Wrestling Club here at St. Joe's Metuchen in Metuchen, New Jersey for the Garden State Wrestling Camps. Thank you for coming on today, Cliff.
Yeah, man. Was happy to come up. Kyle gave me the call and asked me if I'd come up and do some sessions, and it was an easy yes.
So talk a little bit about like the Compound Wrestling Club. That's definitely, as far as like a club goes, definitely something that you always want to get wrestlers to come on to and really get themselves acclimated into the sport. Talk a little bit about like the Compound Wrestling Club and like what it really means to you, what it means to the sport, and how much does it really bring the camaraderie of the sport of wrestling together.
Yeah, so like, man, it's been a crazy journey. Like myself and Lee Roper started compound wrestling 17 years ago down in Georgia, and at the time, like Georgia wasn't a really good wrestling state at all. Like the tradition that they have up here in New Jersey and the northeastern states is much more rich. You know, kids are wrestling at a much younger age. It's much more of a prevalent sport. And down in Georgia, a lot of football, a lot of baseball, and wrestling just wasn't something that kids did year round at a private training facility. There were just one or two training facilities at the time. So we opened up a club on the south side of Atlanta, and we just had this vision that, we were going to provide the kids with the most elite training we could, and we dedicated a significant portion of our time to trying to be elite coaches so they can be elite athletes. And, we didn't know how to coach, they didn't know how to wrestle. So we both grew together for a long time. And that first group of kids we've had come through, and go off to college. And some of them are actually still in college that started at a very young age. It's been really cool because when you see somebody from your state or your community or your county or high school do something significant in a sport, it kind of proves to you that you can do it too. So like for us, seeing kids from the south side and the north side that have come through our gym and kind of changed their stars through the sport of wrestling, like it's provided other kids with the opportunity to be like, I can do that. Like whether I go to a compound or whether I go to another training facility or whatever, like somebody from my area went off and did something special. So like for me, like it's been a heck of a journey. It's provided me with a ton of cool opportunities.
And as far as knowing New Jersey wrestling already by heart, New Jersey is what I describe to it as like the football in Texas. Us is like New Jersey wrestling by like a long shot. And there might be other states that you may talk about that are definitely strong states for wrestling, but nothing really beats like that gut feeling, the good feeling about New Jersey wrestling. Talk a little bit about like what does New Jersey wrestling really mean to this state, and what really did it really provide here at this camp today, as you saw from some of the wrestlers.
I just think the opportunity that Kyle and formats like this provide is it's an isolated chance to evaluate kids or to and both sides of it, right? For coaches, college coaches and stuff like that to evaluate kids, but kids to also be in an environment where they've got to understand, hey, this is the standard. And like if I want to do this thing at an elite level, like this is the standard that I have to operate at. They get other clinicians come in and can share their knowledge and experiences. There's, Rutgers guys down here, Big Ten guys coming back, helping with clubs. You got Howman down there. Like you got this massive network of people that have competed and and won at the highest levels that are just down there available for you to have conversations with, and to pick their brains about specific things. So for me, like it just as a coach to come up here and get around those guys and have conversations, it's invaluable for the kids to be able to come here and be in that environment. You catch somebody's eye, it creates an opportunity for you. And the next thing you know, like, you got to go to the right school and then you got to go to the right college. And then, who knows what happens after that. So
Now, as far as female wrestling goes, it's really growing rapidly, as we all know,
man,
in the state of New Jersey. Like, it's unbelievable how fast it really grew. Now, I've talked with other coaches in the past, and they've all have just could they were just so, amazed of like how much it's really grown. What is really making like the women's wrestling grow as much? Is it because they're finding like is it because they're seeing like their fathers or somebody of that nature or uncles that have been they're breeded into wrestling, or what's really getting them into interested in the sport of wrestling now, do you think?
I think it's the easy answer is a little bit of everything, right? So you've had more organized efforts and events for girls. Used to, if you were a girl wrestler, you just had to go wrestle at a boys' event, take your lumps, and the small portion of those girls that lasted through all of that ended up doing something, right? Ironically enough, the best girl to ever come out of Georgia, and might be for a long time, Amani Jones, came out of our club. She's two-time college national champ, two-time world medalist. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, she's kind of proven that, like, you can have success from this area, you can have success from this state. So, like, just her success alone has allowed other girls to follow. I think another thing is you got events, you got people proving that they can come out of an area, but you also have more people that have been in the sport long enough, girl coaches that are cycling back through that are now coaching in the sport. And let's face it, like, a lot of these girls, like, they want to be coached by a female, right? And there are great girls coaches out there too. You know what I'm saying? But like that starting to cycle back through, I think, is helping it make that growth explode even more. And then schools are adding programs, whether it's high schools, because like traditionally it was Texas. You mentioned Texas, but Texas girls wrestling and California girls wrestling were like the two biggest girl wrestling states. Like, you go to California, most schools have a girls wrestling room and a boys wrestling room. Like, there's most schools in Georgia don't even have a wrestling room at all. You know what I'm saying? A dedicated room. So like, facilities are being made more available throughout the country. State tournaments are being sanctioned more for girls high school wrestling. So like, the opportunity's there now.
What do you think is really making New Jersey stand out in comparison to like the rest of the country as far as like wrestling? Like when you talk about wrestling, almost 90% of the state, maybe a little bit more or less than that. When you talk about wrestling, you got so many fans from wrestling in New Jersey, but what makes it really stand out from the rest of the country? Is it just the way that they perceive themselves, like as far as like promoting the sport, or what really makes it stand out, do you think, versus everywhere
I,
else?
I mean, me being an outsider and being envious of the culture, I think a lot of it's just tradition. And I think, like, with states like New Jersey and PA, it's just, you have so much of that culture and DNA of wrestling ingrained in kids as they're coming up, and that goes back to like people coming back to their clubs. You know what I'm saying? And then getting their families involved and their kids involved and things like that. And that cycle starts to just grow at such a young age, and then the next thing you know, you got kids that they've literally been wrestling since they were 4 or 5 years old. They've been around the sport their entire lives. Like, that's what they know. And it's not just wrestling, it's elite level wrestling, right? And it's everywhere. Y'all's club scene up here is crazy. Like in Georgia, there's not a club within an hour of itself. Like, you got Jersey clubs that are literally around the corner from each other. So there's just so much availability to wrestle and just so much opportunity. Like, it's literally everywhere. It's almost like you can't ignore it, you know?
And that's the one thing about the state of New Jersey, because we're such a small state, but we're a little bit larger than what people really think. Like as soon as you get to the tippy top of the state and you get all the way to the bottom, you're talking like a 3.5 hour ride. Like you could be pretty much everywhere. But really, as far as like the club side of wrestling goes, which is slightly different from the rest of like high school and college wrestling, but not to the extent of like where it's like completely different from everything else.
Sure.
But when you're promoting like that club to kids, are you seeing like more turnout than you probably would have seen like 10, 15, 20 years ago? Like what you're seeing now because of like girls wrestling growing so fast?
Yeah, I think it's just in general, sports are getting a little bit more privatized, right? Like, you're having sports programs even at a high school level and at a prep level that are investing a lot more resources, a lot more finances into stuff like that. And I think with the club scene, just not just wrestling, but with anything, like being able to go to a private training facility and get, focused coaching on that specific sport or position in a sport, right? Like with us, with wrestling, we don't have positions, right? It's everybody wrestling a weight. So, but again, like when I was coming through high school, I graduated in 96, like there was one club in Georgia, and there's not like hundreds of them now, but like there's way more than there were, when I was coming through. So like those clubs help support the schools, and then the schools level raises up, you know what I'm saying? So like it just, to me, it's like it doesn't seem harmonious all the time between the private sector and the in the education, sector, but, like, all of that is feeding towards, a higher standard in the sport, you know?
And, finally, just one last question to kind of wrap up on things. Overall, obviously, great camp today, great turnout of
Sure.
both girls and the
Yeah.
youth boys for that matter, too. And as the rest of the camp continues on, what are you gonna really start? What do you expect really to see from like the rest of the camp turnout? Like, as far as like kids that are getting in there, they're motivating, they're practicing. Like, what is something that you're seeing from those kids that you saw from tonight that you may see the next couple of days from now?
I just think it's just development of the skill and just development of the expectation or what it takes to win at that level. You got guys that are coming here that have competed at that level, that's coached at that level, they can call on the experience of what those kids need to do, and they get that hands-on in a pretty isolated environment, and like there was so many girls out there and it was a range in skill set, but like all those girls with the availability to talk to college coaches and find out what they need to do to be able to compete at that level, whether it's competitively or academically and all that stuff. Like being able to have that two-way conversation I think is invaluable.
I think even with us just even sitting here and really having these conversations, like I wrestled in high school, and high school wrestling was already big at that point in time. But now I feel like it's just getting faster. Like the sport is speeding up a little bit. You're seeing rule changes. You're seeing more states acclimating into the NCAA level in terms of rules and everything. The only thing I wish they would add in is riding time. It's the only thing I would like to see the state do.
Yeah, that'd be a
But
dicey one, but, yeah, I mean, like, overall, just the amount of kids wanting to make age group world teams now, like 10 years ago, like, kids didn't care about making age group world teams, and now it's like you got some kids that, like, they're more focused on that than they are on winning state titles, So, like, there's starting to be higher goals, higher standards set. I mean, our U17 USA team just won the world team championships this past weekend, and it's like it's usually Russia, Iran in a lot of these age groups, and, like, in the last, 5 years, like, we're showing up and showing out. So, like, like, it's not just on a local level, it's not just on a national level, like, it's on a world level now, and, like, that's a huge deal, man.
and
Jaden James, bro.
and you see, and yeah, he had a huge win over there just recently. He was just recently in, I think it was Rome or something like that. He was just out of the country there recently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he just won world
Yeah.
title, yeah.
Which is just absolutely incredible to see, like a young man like that
Yeah,
just already getting into that, getting recognized, worldly.
yep,
It's impressive to see. But anyway, we are running out of time, Coach. But thank you so much for coming on.
sure,
We
man.
really do appreciate it. And we expect to see a lot more from this camp, and it's been a great thing so far for us.
Awesome, man, appreciate you having me.
Of course, Cliff Frettwell, everybody. James Clark from GardensStateHSWrestling.com.